Welcome to Danville, Virginia, where history and architecture on every street, where the Dan River provides a beautiful backdrop, and where the people that call Danville home welcome you with warm Southern hospitality. Danville, Virginia, a place to call home. Choose your landscape, from plush crop fields to architectural gems to wide open farmland. We have it all. Explore new places and bring history to life. Our history is America's history. Experience the diversity. Visit us here in Danville and Southside, Virginia, and share what you love.
Every visit to Danville should start where the city began, on the shores of the Dan River. History buffs will love the fact that veterans of the American Revolutionary War, they would come to this little village by the Dan, where the river was the shallowest, so they could fish and camp out. And probably as they looked across the river, they would see fields of tobacco plants. The river was used for transportation by the farmers, but also it was used to run the machines in the tobacco warehouses and later on in the textile mills. And then nearby trains could transport the tobacco throughout the U.S. and to the coast for worldwide distribution. Take a walk down a cobblestone street into the Tobacco Warehouse District and you will see the best of industrial architecture. Walk across or rent a bike and ride across the historic pedestrian bridge till you get to the Riverwalk on the other side of the Dan River. The Riverwalk is a 12-mile paved walkway that passes beautiful scenery, but also leads you to the Dan Daniel Memorial Park, where there's a Veterans Memorial and the Autobots Baseball Stadium for special events at the Carrington Pavilion, and also at the Farmers Market and the Community Market. You can enjoy outdoor art all throughout the River District, and especially 3 very large murals painted on the outside of buildings that tell more stories about tobacco, trains, and transportation.
So the Danville Museum is a little gem. There are many, many different histories all in one house. One of them is the Civil Rights exhibit documenting Martin Luther King's tour through Danville during the Civil Rights on several occasions. It also gives the school kids access to the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. You will also encounter the Camilla Williams exhibition. Camilla Williams was the first African-American woman to receive a full opera contract, and she has got 2 levels of the museum. The first level shows her costumes in her professional life, and the lower level explains her timeline. She grew up in Danville during segregation and was not able to actually enter the building that now holds her exhibits. We talk about the Civil War and all the implications of the Civil War. It is important for people to understand that when you come to the Danville Museum, you see the full history, and you can also see what's happening today and the conversations around community, diversity, persistence, and change that we are now discussing at the Danville Museum of Fine Arts and History.
One of the tours that I give is the Halbrook Ross Green Book Guided Walking Tour. And the Green Book, it was originated in New York City by a mailman named Victor Hugo Green. And he ran the Green Book from 1936 to 1966. So the Green Book was a traveler's guide for African Americans because it was unsafe to travel from north to south. And so the Green Book would list places where they could stay, where they could get gas, and where they could eat. One of the most significant things about High Street Baptist Church is that Dr. Martin Luther King would speak there twice on his many visits. This church started at the First Baptist Church here on North Main Street. And so at the time of emancipation, the formerly enslaved, they were tired of worshiping in the balcony. And so they wanted their own church. They formed what was called the First Colored Baptist Church, and the congregation would soon be known as High Street Baptist Church. Another interesting area of the city is referred to the Black Business District, and it's comprised of Spring Street, High Street, and North Union. This was called like the Black business mecca of sorts, because there were Black and brown businesses, beauty shops, barber shops, shoe cobbler shops. There was actually a Black bank. This Black business mecca was a booming place, a popular place, and it was essential for African Americans in the city because oftentimes we could not shop on Main Street at the Woolworths and the main thoroughfare. These are all the reasons why you would enjoy your visit to Danville, because not only do you get Civil War history, but there is something for everybody.
Tucked away in the Old West End Historic District sits a quaint museum. Langhorne House being a small footprint, a long history, and many stories of the famous Virginians who resided within its walls. In 1874, tobacco auctioneer Chiswell Dabney Langhorne and his wife, Nanny Witcher Keene, built their modest house at the 1100 West Main Street location, a home to the 5 girls and 3 boys. The original family struggled during the Reconstruction after the war between the states. Mr. Langhorne made a fortune in railroad contracting during the 1880s, then launching 4 of his 5 daughters into society for the purpose of an advantageous match. This meant marrying wealthy, even if it is Northern money, Nancy Langhorne Astor. The middle child married an Englishman, Waldorf Astor, who eventually became a member of the House of Parliament and Lord of the Realm. In addition to raising 5 Astor children, Nancy was very involved in her husband's political career and became the first seated woman in the British Parliament in 1919.
So every bit of our material within our collection is a conglomeration of Danville's true history. We have items within our collection that date from the founding fathers of Danville in Southern Virginia all the way up to the civil rights. Our main goal with this is to preserve the history that's already happened within Danville so that we have a greater understanding of why things are the way they are within the city. You might as well say America's history is Danville's history. Our history stretches pre-Revolutionary War to the colony days, all the way to civil rights. The architectural history of Danville stretches again from federal time period, which is going to be anywhere from 1780 to 1820. We also have the new white mill that's going to be developed along with the pedestrian bridge that will add another 2,000 feet of walking space to Riverwalk. The river alone for outdoor sportsmen is great. Kayaking. Soon we will have whitewater rafting within the luge system at the White Mill Complex. It's truly becoming a walking city for anybody that just loves to get out and get some fresh air and really enjoy the scenery.
So this is a unique story in Virginia, that sort of dependency on an industry, being a mill town in many ways. Schoolfield's a newly minted historic district on the National and State Register of Historic Places. It has over 1,000 structures still existing from when it was created in 1903 as a company town of Dan River Mills. And Dan River Mills manufactured cloth for apparel and home from 1882 until 2006. And Schoolfield was a company town built for textile workers. They created a social system there that allowed people to get life insurance, education, along with housing and work at the mill. Of course, there were 2 requirements for you to live in the mill village in Schoolfield, and one of them, beginning in 1903, was that you worked at the mill. So you couldn't live there if you didn't work at the mill. And then the second one was that you were white. Now, Dan River Mills only hired white operatives, so things like spinners or doffers or things like that, until 1969. So this was a very segregated industry in its early years, and Schoolfield can tell that story. There's still a lot of remaining buildings around, but recently it's been revitalized and it's in the process of revitalization. And it's really going to see some big changes in the next couple of years. We really hope that you can come to Schoolfield, see the changes that are happening, understand the history of the mill village, the lives of the workers who lived there, and the history of Dan River Mills and what's coming next for Danville.
I think Danville is really an example of sort of that boom, bust, and rebirth. Danville is absolutely unique in the cluster of architecturally diverse homes. Millionaire's Row is a literal row down the main street of Danville. That is the example of the boom time of Danville. It has the wealthiest homes, the bankers, tobacconists, textile mavens sort of all lived within that district. So they're the most impressive houses built in the late 1800s, and they really represent sort of an amazing array of that late Victorian sort of period architecture, a little bit of Gothic, the high Victorian moving into the Edwardian. And then Millionaire's Row is housed within a district called the Old West End. The Old West End comprises 140 homes. They were, again, the upper echelon of Danville at the time. It then fell sort of on hard times, was disregarded, and now is alive and vibrant because of new people moving into town that have discovered Danville. And so I think Danville really represents the potential of regrowth, the potential of using its history to really draw people in, to draw a new sense of identity, and to rebuild itself, and that sense of rebirth that can come from understanding your history.